today's World Insight. As the World Economic Forum kicks off in the Alpine town of Davos, rebuilding trust in the tattered world is at the top of the minds of forum participants. WEF President Borge Brende answers tough questions in a one-on-one on day one of Davos 2024.
Hello, I'm Tian, coming to you this week from the Swiss mountain town of Davos, reporting on the 45th World Economic Forum. The forum, one of its largest in history, opens Monday. It aspires to rebuild trust in a fractured world. Chinese Premier Li Qiang will attend the meeting and deliver a speech coming Tuesday. More than 800 global CEOs and a few dozen political leaders from all over the world will be in the audience.
Yes, we are so pleased that Premier is coming with a very big delegation, but also suits China well because it is a very populous country, 1.4 billion people, but also definitely the second most important economy.
On Wednesday, a joint session between CGTN and the World Economic Forum will take a deeper look at the state of the Chinese economy and its relations with that of the world with complicated geopolitical and geo-economic backdrops. I will have the honor to moderate the panel and bring to you all the latest from the forum site. As the forum manages to bring crucial stakeholders together, we will work to bring you exclusive interviews with them from the Mountain Alp. Let's start our interview series with conversation I had the other day with Borge Brende, the World Economic Forum president, right before the 45th World Economic Forum annual meeting opens. Amid the snow-capped mountains, they come together to rebuild trust in a fractured world. I am here too, bringing to you all the discussions about the world's intertwined challenges, and more importantly, reporting on efforts to find solutions, among which China is a critical player. Join me for key updates and exclusive interviews from Davos at the World Economic Forum's annual meeting. Mr. President, what a pleasure to see you once again.
Likewise, and welcome to Davos.
I understand this is the very first interview you take.
It is true. For TV, of course, I have to make a priority for you and China.
Thank you so much, sir. And the reason about China, this is a huge delegation that's coming to Davos for the 54th annual meeting.
Yes, we are so pleased that Premier is coming with a very big delegation, but also suits China well because it is a very populous country, 1.4 billion people, but also definitely the second most important economy in the world. And there's so much interest in China's development path. So all the Chinese sessions have been oversubscribed here in Davos.
What do you think people are looking for in their answers?
So I think a lot of interest related to the tone in the Premier's speech here.
If you had the opportunity to ask the Premier 3 questions, what would you ask?
That's a good one.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not used to be a journalist. I'm used to answering the questions. But I think I would ask the Premier what is China's role in shaping a more collaboration globally. Second, China has been growing at an incredible level for decades. How does the Premier see Chinese growth in the years to come? How much will it pivot from an export-led growth to also a growth including more domestic increased demand, the home market, but also towards more export of services and digital trade. I think the third one would be the role of the cooperation between G2, China and US. Is it going to be only fierce competition, or what are the areas where we can also see cooperation?
So first question, China and the world. Second, China's economy, transition. Third, what about the relationship between the two largest economies in the world?
Yes.
Wow, that's a very rich, I guess, list of questions.
Oh, thank you. You know, you're much better at that because you're a born journalist, but I had to do my best.
I think there will be an enormous amount of enthusiasm and curiosity from the audience, isn't it?
Yeah, indeed. And as we know, because of the size of China, the path forward for China means not only a lot to the Chinese population, but it also has a global impact. And it is now definitely a situation where we are not anymore in the post-Cold War era. We are now seeing a new world order. We just don't know yet what it is. So in that, I think China will have a critical role in shaping this new world order, based on multilateralism, based on cooperation, but also because of China's sway with the global south, but also a lot of emerging economies do also get a lot of inspiration from Beijing.
Yeah, you just don't know. When I'm standing here, you know, on top of the stairs overlooking the Congress Hall right behind us, so many people pass by and ask me, are you from China? So tell me about your delegation. How many people are going to be there? Who are they? What are they going to say? Which sessions are they going to be? So many questions. I said, you know, I would know the answer after I talk to Borge. There you go.
Or maybe you'll know the answer after you listen to all their speeches.
That's true, that's true. But give us some preview about what is likely to be the scale and the specific roles of those important VIPs.
So the Premier is bringing a very rich and important delegation. He's bringing the chairman of NDRC, also bringing a strong trade delegation, also a delegation from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. So I think he's bringing around 120 people all together. So the Chinese footprint in Davos on Tuesday will be very broad. He's also then doing the opening speech. So we're all very interested in the signals. I do expect that the Premier will follow up on the important speech of President Xi Jinping in 2017, where he underlined that we need to collaborate. We cannot only compete. We need a strong multilateral system, and he said that China is very committed and dedicated to that. So I do expect that we probably hear something along these lines also from the Premier. But the world has changed too, a lot since then. So it has to be updated to the landscape we're faced with today.
The forum has always aspired to be a bridge. What kind of bridge is the forum today, for example, between China and the rest of the world, compared to, let's just say, 10 years ago? Borge, I know you've been working for the forum already for 10 years, you know, for different terms. This is your second term, 6th year already. So I guess you are most qualified to answer that question.
No, thank you. So the world has changed also during the last 10 years. I think being a bridge between North and South and East and West is even more important for the World Economic Forum. So we at least look at ourselves as a trusted platform. We are as Chinese as we are European or African or Latin American, and I think that we brought Davos to China. The summer Davos has been very important for also the trust between the World Economic Forum and China. And the fact that the Premier is coming here also shows that China sees the value of meeting here with 60 other heads of states and governments. We have 300 cabinet ministers from all over the world. But maybe even more important, we have the 800 leading CEOs of all global businesses. And I know that Premier will also meet with a lot of the global CEOs when he's here, like President Xi Jinping did in San Francisco during the APEC meeting.
As the forum, I see every year you are trying to nail down, the most important changes of the time. But voila, that's such a gigantic job. How did you decide to work on rebuilding trust? I mean, to me, this is a really ambitious task that put in front of you. And the final homework is not going to be an easy one.
That's true, but we're not looking for easy homework. We are looking for consequential and important homework. And I think we all know that the most pressing issues in the world do travel without passports. They're transboundary. Look at climate change. We are seeing now that the global food production will have challenges to scale because of climate change. We know that future pandemics do travel without passports. We knew that and know that from COVID. We also know that cyber attacks, they go transboundary. So the only way to then really make sure that we can deal with these challenges is that we collaborate, and we need more collaboration and not less collaboration.
People, it's so hard to find solutions, especially actionable, united solutions. So you hear people have more disillusions, they're more confused, and they complain. How to make sure all the discussions here are not going to be complaining sessions, but rather actionable discussions that can lead to real results?
It's such a good point. I think a lot of people were having a hard time during the pandemic and COVID. We know that the global economy is not growing as fast as it used to do. The 20 last years, it used to grow 3.8% per year. Now it's growing 2.9%. So combined with inflation and also combined with higher interest rates, people do feel this. But I think it's important also to show that there are silver linings. And some people were even expecting recessions now. But the economies are still growing. And I prefer to look at the glass half full instead of half empty. And even if we have challenges, there is real opportunities moving forward. If we look at the new technologies, for example, artificial intelligence, Internet of Things, these can increase the global productivity with 30% in the coming decade. That would be the highest increase in productivity that we've seen in recent history. And productivity is really prosperity. Right. If you can produce higher up in the value chain with less people, you can then afford to buy more, and you will have also increased salaries in the households.
Right. So I see already the forum trying to establish something like an AI alliance, bringing all the stakeholders together, trying to come up with the right attitude toward the rapid development of AI, while at the same time things like early movers on climate change. So a lot of actions involved, but the world is watching as to what might be the actions they can take together as an inspiration for all the others to follow.
Exactly. I think the immediate challenge now is to making sure that the geopolitical situation doesn't escalate in a negative way. I'm thinking about the war in Gaza. We have the situation now with the Houthis. Making sure that this now is not becoming a full-fledged regional conflict. I don't think it will, but we will have to stabilize that. Then, of course, we will also now have to look at the opportunities there when it comes to cooperation. I mentioned a huge potential when it comes to artificial intelligence, but it also has potential negative sides. It could be killer robots, it could be also a deep fake. We need traffic rules. Just imagine Beijing without any traffic rules. It would be total chaos. And today, globally, we have no globally agreed traffic rules for artificial intelligence. So we need that. On also climate change, we also need to work with business, because there is really the companies that can do a lot now moving forward. And that's the First Movers Coalition, as you mentioned, is a coalition of 100 companies that have said that we will use our big purchasing power to create a green demand. We will ask for greener products. And that's sending a really strong signal to a demand signal.
Amid the snow-capped mountains, they come together to rebuild trust in a fractured world. I am here too, bringing to you all the discussions about the world's intertwined challenges, and more importantly, reporting on efforts to find solutions, among which China is a critical player. Join me for key updates and exclusive interviews from Davos at the World Economic Forum's annual meeting. How come all these good messages very hard to travel?
That's true.
Misinformation, disinformation travel so fast. What's happening?
So when we grew up, at least when I grew up, we read newspapers that were very carefully edited by editors. So what you read in the newspaper was fact-checked and all this. A lot of people now get most of their information from social media. And when they get it from social media, you have to take it with a pinch of salt. It is not like edited by someone. You have to look at it and say, oh, this is correct, this is fake news and all this. So I think there's a lot of misunderstandings, especially I think in Europe and in the US. People read things and they believe it, even if it's not the reality. And that, of course, is very challenging, because a basis for good decisions is that you have all the facts, and you have to make decisions based on fact. Just imagine if you were making decisions based on not factual, the facts.
Based on opinions rather than the facts.
Yeah, and maybe misleading opinions.
Yes.
That's trying to manipulate you.
So media literacy is one of the biggest priorities, it seems, that we are facing today altogether.
Yeah, so I think social media illiteracy and not being critical enough when you read what is there. You have to take it, with a pinch of salt. It is not necessarily true everything you read. I know it from when I was foreign minister myself. People came to me also in public meetings and said so and so and so. And I said, oh, what's your source?
Yes.
Oh, no, I saw it in social media. I saw it in Facebook or Weibo or something like that. Of course, it can be correct, but it doesn't need to be correct.
So what is the forum trying to deal with? How is the forum trying to deal with misinformation and disinformation about the forum?
Yeah, that's also a good question, because the forum is, in my view, of course I'm biased, but I think we're a very successful organization. We are really trying to bring different players together, build bridges. We're impartial and neutral. But there's always someone that likes to attack also successful organizations. And we have also had our portion of that. Sometimes we just, when people go low, you go high. So we try to ignore it. But if it's too bad, I think we maybe have to be tougher in the future and say, this is just ridiculous. It's not right. But doesn't keep us up at night, though. but we're not complacent either. We have to just find a balance.
A good balance.
But yeah, a good balance.
Also about China, as there were the issue of the pandemic earlier, and therefore interactions between China and the rest of the world has been somewhat not satisfying. So there is also an issue about misinformation, disinformation, or lack of quality information about China. On the other hand, of course, these days, when you see the operations of media, rhetorics, narratives are always key elements. So how do you see, the mixture about this, people's impressions about China? How is this time, through the forum, the impressions can be closer to facts?
Good question. I think come to our summer Davos next year in Dalian and see for yourself all what is also happening in China. Sometimes,
actually, last year in Tianjin was already very helpful.
Yeah. So then people came, they could then check themselves if it was like some people then portray it to be in social media. China is 1.4 billion people. It's the second largest economy. So there's many Chinas. There is many provinces. There is a lot of people. There's a lot of things happening at the same time. It's not one China. It's 1.4 billion China. So I think we need to we have to avoid being black and white. Everything comes with nuances. And China is an ancient society. China is still a growing economy. It's still the largest exporter in the world. But as other countries, also, of course, China also has its challenges, but it takes it very seriously. It's addressing it in a very meticulous way. And that's, I think, the only thing one can ask for. But we're also in a very complicated world, and I also, production is changing very fastly. So what is growing most today is, for example, digital trade and services. So digital trade is growing double as fast as traditional goods. China exports 90% of everything related to solar and wind. But China is also diversifying, and China also has seen that it has invested a lot in real estate and in infrastructure in the past, and the Chinese leadership is now reallocating these investments also into investments in the new technologies, in
new infrastructure,
and
new energy, and also new technologies.
And the energy transformation is critical. Half of all the renewable energy that was invested in last year came from China. But at the same time, of course, China is also a major producer of coal, because that is the resource that China has. So China is pivoting fast, but of course, things do take time too. People want jobs. People also want to keep their income. People want growth. And we should not forget, though, that the historic eradication of poverty that has happened in China since I was in China in 1986 until now is like lifting 1 billion people out of poverty. That's not an easy thing to do, and it's never happened in the history of our planet that so many people have been lifted out of poverty in such a short time. But of course, when you get a big middle class want a car, middle class want better houses, they want better education for their children and all that, and that's a natural development. And then it's also challenging for policy makers, and especially in a situation where we see more trade barriers, more tariffs, also friendshoring and all this. And for China, that is an export-led economy, has had to pivot. But medium, long term, I'm optimistic on behalf of Chinese competitiveness and economy.
Over the past few years, we see geopolitics and geoeconomics have been playing major roles in the international sphere. So do you see we have already acquired at least some preliminary level of maturity as a whole?
I hope so. I hope the Spring Festival, the Chinese New Year, will be a very good one. I hope people will also have the opportunity to go and visit their families, and I hope that the meeting between President Biden and President Xi Jinping was the start of better US-China relations, because we all need that. China and the US is 45% of the global GDP, is almost half of what is wealth created on our planet. These two nations need to work well together. That's incredibly important. They will compete, of course, in many areas, but we can live with. But we need to have orderly cooperation. I think also China's cooperation with Europe is on a good track. And I think we just have to come back to a win-win thinking. Like, what's good for you, it's good for me, and like versa. That's why we have doubled the global GDP since 1990. Not beggar thy neighbor approach. That's not the approach we should have. It is really that we can prosper each other. That is the recipe also moving forward. But it is put under pressure. It is, because of more mercantilistic thinking, zero-sum thinking.
The reason I'm asking that is also because there's a couple of dozens of elections going on this year.
Yeah.
And one could expect all these elections are going to bring real policy changes, mentality changes, economic changes as well. So from you, as someone who's running this organization, one of the most important platforms for multilateral discussions, bringing all the stakeholders, what are your suggestions to be more mature, to be able to look at the common sense?
I hope so, that will also be the outcome of these elections. A lot is at stake, but there's big countries having their elections this year. You know, India, I think, is the first one with 1.4 billion people. And I think there is an election in the US too in the fall. I heard it's a presidential election. So I think there is...
I think that is not disinformation.
No, I think that's a fact.
Yeah, that is a fact. We're looking to see the results of all the facts. Mm-hmm. Thank you so much, Mr. President, once again, for giving us this opportunity, the very first interview of the annual meeting 2024.
It's a pleasure, really.
And that's my conversation with President of the World Economic Forum, Borge Brende. That's all the time we have for today. Tomorrow, we will bring you more about the Chinese Premier's speech, the forum I host, and also the series of interviews we have on the site at the World Economic Forum annual meeting. If you'd like to learn more, try to find us, World Insight, on our YouTube channel. You can also follow us on X and Facebook. I'm Tian on behalf of my team here in Davos, Switzerland, and also back in Beijing. Thanks for being with us, and I'll see you tomorrow.